Senator Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Dr. Waller and Dr. Shelton, both of you have extensive experience and you're academically qualified. I have no problem with that. Dr. Shelton, I do have I'm troubled by some of your writings and some of the articles that that others have written about your writings and some of the stands. And this is a good time to air them out, I suppose. I think the question to me, I've been on this committee a long time, and we have, as Senator Brown, we're more than Fed watchers. We're tasked with the Senate to evaluate all of you before you're confirmed or not confirmed. Some people say that Dr. Shelton, that you're basically an outlier, that you're not mainstream, you don't have mainstream views in the economy. We think, most people think, not everybody, that the role of the Federal Reserve is stated by law, price stability and full employment, whatever. That's goals that we try to reach. And the Federal Reserve, when you're nominated to the Federal Reserve and confirmed by the Senate, generally it's for a long term, probably the longest term that we have. A lot more, oftentimes, up to 14 years, I believe. So our views, I believe, should be mainstream. How do you, if people deem you, a lot of people have, that you're an outlier, not a mainstream player, if you were on the Fed, how would you work with the other members? Could you work with them on the goal of price stability and full employment, or would you be really an outlier?
Thank you, Senator Shelby. I would look very much forward to working with my colleagues at the Federal Reserve. I have great respect for their capabilities and for their judgment. Mm-hmm. I think I would bring my own perspective, but I think the intellectual diversity strengthens the discussion and would be welcomed. And so that is what I would hope to bring, but certainly with the goal of working with the people who are there, as together we would try to formulate monetary policy most conducive to productive economic growth.
You know, a lot of you've talked about it, and other people have written about the gold standard. If we had all the gold in the world, all that's been mined and all the jewelry and storage, it wouldn't be worth, I believe, anything what our economies are worth, what the GDP of this country is worth, or the GDP of the European Union, or China, or Japan, and so forth. Would that basically be true?
That is true.
So when you talk about the gold standard, that obviously was coming. The gold standard came in the old economy when we had a barter economy, basically, didn't we, in a sense?
We've had a barter economy, yeah.
Have we progressed beyond that, and it's the confidence of the nation and the people and the economy backing all the wealth behind it? Is that what we deem valuable today?
Definitely.
So talk to us a little bit about your views on the gold standard, which we've given up long ago, and the other people in the world. I don't know anybody's relying on it now. And do you still believe that's important, and why? And where are you?
Thank you, Senator Shelby. Well, first, I totally agree with your assessment. You never go back with money. It keeps moving forward into the future. And I'm surprised that people attempt to say they must have some thought about me advocating a gold standard, and I suppose they're talking about the classical international gold standard. I would just point out that there's about $1.8 trillion in outstanding Federal Reserve notes. That's just the currency. Most of it's held outside the country. If you looked at the market value of the U.S. government's total holdings of gold, it would be less than even a quarter of that amount. And that's just the most basic form of money. So I'm not really sure what anyone...
That's a commodity, isn't it?
It is a commodity. It has a historical use as a monetary surrogate, but it's mixed use today. And as I've said, it's useful to look at something that worked from 1870 to 1913, when the U.S. was a participant in the classical gold standard. It's worth it to look at the Bretton Woods gold exchange standard, where the U.S. was the anchor from 1944 to 1971. But that was 50 years ago, when we had any kind of a monetary role for gold. We certainly have to just be looking toward the future.
Have you advocated return to the Bretton Woods program?
What I've said about the Bretton Woods Agreement is that it did establish a level monetary playing field in terms of exchange rates.
That's when the world was in disarray, right after about the time of the Second World War ended.
Precisely. And a lot of nations still struggling. The war wasn't over when Bretton Woods was being put together by the United States. We're thinking, is this going to be worth it to win? Because if we're going back to what we had in the 1930s, when you had competitive devaluation, you had retaliatory tariffs, and that created a downward spiral in international trade, that's not worth fighting for. So the United States actually set up the Bretton Woods Agreement to give hope that there would be a better future and that investment would flow to its highest use around the world, and that people would not use competitive depreciation to undermine the principles of free trade.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.